Hey everybody, and welcome to Westworld with Jay, Jack, and Mike. My name is Jay.
My name is Mike.
And I'm Dolores.
And welcome to the show. Gentlemen, how are you today?
Good.
They really served that up on a silver platter, Jack. I think you would have clearly made a big miss had you not said I'm Dolores.
I had to say
we're all Dolores, aren't we? Is that the point?
Yeah, don't mess with me.
Oh my God. Wow.
I will kick your butt.
Do you think maybe in an alternate take, like the end of season 3 was like, we found the fifth pearl, but we don't know who it is, and then like they show a mirror up to the camera and it's like reflecting back at you and like, you're the fifth host. You're the one the entire time.
But isn't it cool they gave us the answer?
Yeah, I mean, we talked on this very podcast last week. I was like, I do not think we're getting any answer to who Charlotte Hale is anytime soon.
Yeah.
Could not be more wrong. Which I think also speaks to not only the pace of the season, but like if we're considering, again, this season's only 8 episodes. So if we're considering this almost like a mid-season finale, except we pick it right back up next week. But like, this is a good, point to mark halfway through the season. It really is a game changer in so many ways.
Yeah, and I love how we spent a good amount of time talking about it. If it's Teddy, that's going to be such a whatever. It's just going to be lame. Yeah. Like, but then it was just like, we weren't even close, but it was right there the whole time.
It was. I found a video where they had this on YouTube where they dissect each episode, and they had like 6 things who could be Charlotte.
Mm-hmm.
They even had Caleb. And I go, God, they almost had me convinced it could be Caleb. So I'm watching the episode and I'm like going, and when I said, "Oh, come on," because I don't think anybody had it.
Yeah, well, the Caleb thing is interesting. So what was the theory that all of the Caleb and Dolores stuff was a previous timeline, and that Caleb died, and then she put his memories into Charlotte?
Right. Yes.
Interesting. Well, I'm glad that had because I mean,
oh wow, that's actually a really cool theory.
It's a cool theory, though. I would not be terribly it seems like that would be a bit leaning back on the whole season 1 twist of it's true. Multiple timelines and the Man in Black is William. But yeah, I mean, this was it's the perfect twist. I always think the perfect twists in pop culture are the ones that completely flummox you, but the more you think about it, makes so much sense. And I mean, yes, I think we still need to fill in a blank as to how she had the ability to copy her own personas. Maybe it's just as simple as taking a file out of a folder and pressing Control-C and Control-V. But I mean,
for the Mac users, Command-C.
Yes, exactly. And she wants Command, so I think that actually makes more sense. But yeah, but it makes a lot of sense. I think it's Maeve who says it to Musashi Dolores of you basically felt that the only person capable of doing this was yourself. Yeah. So of course it makes sense that you are basically disseminating yourself around the world to try to take care of this all at once.
Right.
And she
went with who she could trust.
What I love about the reveal though is we praise the multiple timelines, twist of season 1 because it made sense. It wasn't just a twist for twist's sake. They set it up, it all made sense, and honestly everyone kind of figured it out well before the reveal. But what's so neat about this one, and maybe because they pulled it up to episode 4, is nobody, to Jack's point, nobody was really driving that theory. So it's almost as a big FU to their rewrites they had to do last season to the people that figured out what they were going to do.
Maybe that's why they answered it so quick too.
Probably.
It makes me wonder, is there something even bigger that needs to answer? Because I mean, I think up to that point, that was probably the biggest mystery, right? Who were the 5 pearls that Dolores took? And I guess our assumption right now, is that one was Bernard and the other 4 were all Dolores's?
And it kind of made sense because, and I always thought
Bernard's was different.
Bernard's
red.
looked
a little different when we saw it last time.
It had red in it, red in the silvery, gray. Yeah. But the rest were all the same color. God, it was right there in front of us the whole damn time.
It's almost like Lost when season 4 when John Locke is dead, but then he comes back. But they said dead is dead,
right?
Yeah.
But none of us are figuring out, that he's dead.
Well, I think it's sort of to that point, though. I think it's because it's one of those things where, like, I think we're led down a certain path when we think about the Dolores character, which is like she's really good at amassing an army. We saw that throughout season 2, where she was able to recruit so many hosts to her cause that, you know, they were able to really mount an aggressive assault on the park by the end of it. So you just assume, like, oh yeah, it's Teddy. Oh yeah, maybe it's, you know, it's Clementine. Maybe it's Ford. I did think for a second when Charlotte told William, like, I'm your oldest friend, I did think it was Ford for like a hot second until
I did also.
I don't think you necessarily consider Ford his friend unless it means like in a very sarcastic manner. But when we're talking about Dolores amassing an army, like, no better for her than to her amass herself. But this doesn't mean that this is a succinct period at the end of this sentence, right? This is like a question mark, because the thing is, like, these, you know, these consciousnesses are realizing they're Dolores, but as we found out last episode, they're also sort of mixed together with the people that they're imbuing. And even though, you know, we didn't really, I mean, maybe we'll see with Musashi. I feel like we don't really know too much about Musashi, that, you know, we'll see parts of him. This guy, Martin Calls, or whatever his name is, Liam's bodyguard, doesn't really seem to have that much quality to him. But the Charlotte one is going to be something really interesting. If I put in a prediction, and I don't know if this is your hot take, Jack, so apologize if I accidentally spoil it. I think that, like, I think the Charlotte Dolores is going to be the thorn in Dolores' side, ultimately.
I'm kidding.
But no, I think you're right. I think these variants on the character itself is going to be really interesting. But it also makes so much more sense now how whoever she put in Charlotte is able to kind of just pick up, you know, be able to hit the ground running, all those kinds of things.
Right, like she has the talent. It's not like it's not like you're recruiting somebody below your talent level to like have to train them.
Because Teddy never. That's one thing that was keeping me from Teddy, was that Teddy didn't have the chops.
Or Clementine, or really safer.
They weren't business savvy or savvy in life, whatever you want to say.
Yeah, the only thing that Teddy had was that one time when, like, Ford programmed him with that Wyatt narrative, and he wasn't savvy; he was more so savage. Yeah. So you can understand it, like, that bestial perspective. And when we got at this episode, when William told her, you know, the claws are out, but again, it totally makes sense, especially what we saw last episode with, like, Dolores almost serving as like a parent to this essentially younger version of herself that was still trying to figure out who she was in this new role. No wonder she showed that much, you know, sentimentality towards her. It's a version of herself.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. And again, it's just so freaking obvious.
But that's what made it. But again, I forget who was your Mike that said it, but that's what made it so special.
Yeah.
It's like, well, it's when a show can do that, you know, a show that's, you know, it's a show that we pick apart and, you know, we're dissecting it, and nobody came up with it.
But what I love about the pacing that this season has brought is it doesn't linger on it. It doesn't, like, just hang around in it too long to where it gets frustrating.
Very, very tight storytelling.
Yeah, exactly. I really like the way it was done, because it really does feel like there were sort of 3 separate storylines this episode. There was Dolores' hunt to get to Liam, and I guess subsequently Bernard and Stubbs finally touching down in the United States, trying to make their own stoppage of Dolores. You have the whole William and Charlotte thing, which is super interesting. You say hello to William in season 3. We might be saying goodbye to William in season 3, which we'll certainly get into. And then you have this whole thing with Maeve's journey over in China / Japan. The subtitle says they were speaking Chinese and Japanese, and the Yakuza was involved, but all of them seem to swirl together at the exact same time when you got the realization that Dolores is everywhere. And that's a really cool concept, and it makes sense as to why she's going after the Rehoboam, this like Rehoboam, I think it is, this like giant mass that is also everywhere and can detect everything, is because that's what she wants to be. She's already striving to do so. Yeah,
and there's like the confirmation from Sirach on that too, and that connection to it, and it kind of The previous episodes make you think Sirach has the upper hand, but this episode quickly shows he's not. While he is well, you know, armed to maybe fight this battle, against Dolores, and he's playing it too tight, like very much this is a war between species. And
he didn't know there were five Doloreses, right?
Well, correct. Yeah, exactly.
Right. He just knew that she took. Basically, his thing is that, I created this program to help, predict human behavior, to get the most comprehensive picture of human behavior there was, but somebody did it better than me. They put it inside this park, and Dolores knows where that information is. Mm-hmm. So it's not even about like what Dolores is trying to do for Serac. It's just, I want the information that she has.
Yep, exactly. And him enlisting Maeve, I think we even thought, like, okay, sure, maybe, but like, is Maeve really going to fight for him? It was not as clear cut by the end of this episode that I thought it would be, because I kind of feel Maeve's side in this, where she's like, where she's talking to Dolores, as Musashi. You said you're going to take us with you to the promised land, but you're actually only taking yourself, or in putting you in all these places. So like, I see Maeve's side in this, and I'm curious to see after this episode, is she going to really align with Serac, or is she still her own narrative that she's trying to drive forward through? Because now I thought we would be more focused into what she's going to be driving towards, and I'm still kind of up in the air of what her purpose is, because I don't see her staying with Serac, but I also don't see why she would align with Dolores yet.
Yeah, what do you guys think about like Serac's pitch to Maeve is like, I can help you get back together with your daughter. I don't know. Like, it's so interesting, because I thought that the moment that she sent her daughter through to the Valley Beyond at end of season 2, like, felt like extreme closure to me from the character perspective. Yes. So I thought it was an interesting character beat to go after, because I wouldn't imagine like that she'd have that much lingering longing to do that,
Yeah.
Well, she even said that world is closed, and he said, "No, I can."
Dolores has the key.
Dolores has the key, so that's why. Does Dolores have the key? Is he just using that to get? I mean, she does go off to. I mean, after he shoots the guy in the head, she does take off.
Well, but that's where I find it's compelling, because, he's like, well, there's no humans created heaven or hell to kind of keep people in line.
Right.
But, this guy, he just doesn't exist anymore. He's dead. The guy that he killed.
Yeah. And that's interesting as well. It's like, he's basically saying, like, he almost, in that moment, he's telling to Maeve, like, but your world is better than ours.
Yes.
Because you actually have that afterlife.
Yep.
We have no afterlife here. And we get a little bit more from the Serac story as well. Like, we get that brief flashback.
Paris is nuclear annihilated. That was interesting.
Well, especially because, at least, again, maybe this is me jumping to conclusions randomly throughout this episode, when I see, like, a young boy in knickers running around this, like, plaintive field, I was thinking Robert Ford for a hot second, until I realized, I was like, well, he's British and Serac is French, and I think there's a noticeable age difference between the two. Ford never talked about, I think there was a brother. There was a brother, because I remember him and his brother had the dog, but like, that would be a crazy twist if it was like Serac was actually Ford's brother. But yeah, it seems that this is someone who's like, clearly he forged his own path through trauma, and this idea that like this random event occurred in his life that caused so much destruction that he wanted to prevent that type of thing from ever happening again.
Yeah.
I did have one question. Why were they beating the identity broker when they could have just put the glasses on him?
Because they wanted
just for fun.
I think the glasses are probably like a last resort. Like, I think they probably wanted to try a bunch of different things on them. Like, let's beat him up and then torture him a bit, and then we'll try to mentally torture him. I'm not sure. I thought the Maeve storyline was interesting, but I didn't know how I felt about the whole like moving from place to place of like, we go from this guy to the club to the mortician to the warehouse where Masushi like it felt like a bit like we're just ascending through the ranks of this Yakuza that we don't necessarily care about. But I do see if it's part of like, I guess, Maeve's never-ending journey to see just how, I guess it is when you look back, shows just how like much control Dolores had over that entire organization. I guess we do find out a bit more as to like what she did to get the pearls.
Well, they're almost setting up Maeve as being indestructible, because she's just mowing through everybody, but yet Dolores gets the best of her.
I think it does. Yeah, it shows the only one that could kind of probably go toe to toe with her is Maeve, but then Bernard too. But Bernard is classic Bernard, where he's just kind of woefully unprepared all the time.
He was definitely like 2 steps behind because he was convinced this entire time that Dolores had put a pearl into Liam.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And she didn't realize that Connell's, the bodyguard, was the one that she had really gotten to, and that Liam, she's clearly going to use Liam. He didn't realize that. He thought she was just going to go for like the jugular when it's clear she would rather manipulate him.
Yep.
Now, what about Caleb? Because Caleb was last week was all on the pier. He was all in. I'm all in. And this week he was he was hesitating. When they're in the bank and she goes, "If this doesn't work, well, I'll have to kill them all." And he's like, was he having post-traumatic stress syndrome, where he's or was he having second thoughts? Because the whole time it just seemed like he was like, I didn't sign up for this.
I think that's a classic kind of story archetype, right? It's you agree with the idea and concept, right?
Right.
Whatever that is. And you can even look at the American Revolution. It's like, okay, yeah, absolutely, America should be an independent nation. But then we have to get down to like what that actually would have to entail. It's like, oh, actually, I don't want to have to like have a 10-year war of independence or whatever.
Cold. It's too cold,
right?
At winter
So
time.
It's much easier to agree to a revolution in concept, but but like actually doing it is probably a bit more of a dirty task. And so it makes sense to me that he's probably like, ooh.
Well, not to mention, like, the previous run-ins he's had with Dolores was, like, when the dirty, the people from the Rico app were trying to kill her, right. And then when, the other thugs were coming for him. So, like, maybe from his opinion, she's only killed out of, like, protecting him.
Yeah. This
is a moment where she's like, all right, well, if your blood thing doesn't work, I'm just going to shoot up this entire financial institution.
Yeah.
It's going a bit from 0 to 60.
Yeah.
Because he was stressing out so much, he had sweat all over his hand. It didn't work the first time.
So this is so interesting to me, this, like, blood tracker thing. Are we assuming that, like, does it prick your finger and detect your blood? Because it looked like a regular fingerprint scanner to me, but I'm not sure how you can, like, how you can feel someone's blood just purely through tactile.
I said last night, this is the technology that we have in the future. It seems like pretty easy that you just take someone's blood and steal all their money. I go, that doesn't seem like the greatest technology in the world. I wanted to say Caleb too. He even said, "What the hell are you doing?" She grabs that guy and slams him up against the thing, knocks him out, takes it. What are you doing? That's what I think first set him off. Like, what's going on here?
Not to mention, it's not 1790 where it's like you also have photographs you could do.
Yeah.
You could look at a picture of him, I assume.
Yeah, but actually it's interesting. Yeah, that when they scanned him, it's not like a picture of him popped up.
Comes
you could look at it like, oh, you look extremely. So I guess you could use the thing that we use today, right? Of like, oh, that was a bad day when I had my photo taken.
But maybe the blood, when you do that, it shows the image. Whoever. Maybe it showed Caleb's image. Would have showed Caleb's image.
I also would love like a medical person to sound off for next week's feedback as to like, because I'm pretty sure the blood pumps through the body pretty quickly. I don't know how long of a time it would take for the blood to actually like stay in the system before it really dilutes itself. As Dolores talks about.
She said you had 20 minutes and you need to stay calm. And he wasn't staying calm.
I would assume there's some type of like DNA markers that'll show up if you put a certain amount of somebody else's blood in your system. That's what I would think. But I think everyone's point here is it's okay. But I feel like when, Tom Cruise's Mission Impossible movies, which are in present day, have these elaborate like masks and stuff like that they come up with and blah, 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 blah. Like that is, even though it's also kind of far-fetched, like you could do that. I do question the security system. And maybe because it's a underworld bank thing, they don't want pictures to show who you are. Maybe that could be it, but it feels a bit of a stretch.
It's a little fun symbolism, though, right? Because Dolores is somebody who has like been assuming the identity of somebody else. So Caleb got to do it for a hot second. It's just through a weird bloody method instead of just placing your own consciousness within somebody else.
Right.
Because, to me, it's just like, it'd be very easy to like incapacitate somebody for a moment to draw some blood and then pretend to be them.
That's what I'm saying.
Like there should be so many cases of identity theft in the world today, or in 2359 of like, well, this person's pretending to be the president again, saying this and that. Got a little bit of blood off. Also, if you want Caleb's heart rate to stay down, Dolores, don't like pull out a gun and like get ready to open fire, because I feel like that's just going to amp things up. So I know that, as Jack has pointed out many times, Caleb doesn't necessarily flinch when a gun is pulled on him, but that's never like a good thing to help calm down your heart rate.
Yep.
Yeah. I'll have to kill them all. What?
So
maybe you think we'll get a different answer? Maybe it's more complicated than they showed us,
Probably,
or is it just one of those things where we just say, just accept it and move on? The episode was great. Don't pick apart.
At the end of the day, it is I agree. At the end of the day, it's an accept it and move on, whatever.
Yeah. It's like a future, these things exist. So, I mean, they using that blood trick, so they rob Liam of all his money. What do you think Dolores' plan is here, especially knowing that now she has like someone, not only is she linked back up with Liam, but one of his closest confidants is her.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think you said it perfectly earlier when you said that the play isn't to actually replace Liam with her. It's to manipulate Liam into doing something. And then what's probably the easiest way to manipulate him into doing something is take away his massive wealth. And I think she even said it for like super wealthy people. They don't even like...
He couldn't even make his donation to charity.
Right.
That's a hell of a donation.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's a very easy way to kind of coerce someone into doing something.
And I like that, because that's actually very comparable to what Charlotte ends up doing to William at the end of the episode, which is essentially like, while Charlotte is trying to gain majority shares to keep Serac out of Delos, Dolores seems, I'm assuming, to be acquiring like majority information of insight to gain to gain the access to Rehoboam. And so it's almost like they're at like mutually assured destruction, right? Like between Serac and Dolores, each one wants what like the other one has. So I wonder if we're going to get that moment later on.
Probably. Yeah.
Or they make a deal together and then the world just burns.
Now, what about the part where Charlotte Dolores, when they're taking William to the mental hospital?
Funny farm, yeah.
It pricks his neck and draws blood. Now, since he's in the hospital, they would have access to his blood, right? So they can.
Well, it wasn't a drawn amount to like pass one of those DNA markers or whatever that was.
No, I'm saying, but they know where he's at, and they have access to him. So if they need him to vote a certain way.
She already said that basically, like, I think what she essentially said was like, he's pleading insanity, so he automatically ceded his shares over to me. So basically, she's making decisions for him.
Okay.
For the rest of it. So I wonder, maybe this is something else. Maybe Dolores goes back to her lab and like makes something else happen. Because I agree. I don't know if it was like a blood pull, like what happened with this guy who Caleb posed as much as it is maybe just like a prick for DNA purposes.
Maybe it was like a Dexter thing. He was saving it for,
Or maybe she put like a tracker in him,
Yeah, I think it's more something like that. I think she probably inserted some type of like microchip control.
But they know where he's at. He's not getting out.
Right, but if he does get out, then she'll know where he is.
Or I don't know if it's as much as like a lost pet tag. But I could see something maybe that has a little bit more information or maybe a little bit more control than just a geo tracker.
Yeah, like I wonder if she feels that she's not done with William.
Yeah,
because it'd be weird, right? Because like this episode did emotionally feel like a farewell to the Man in Black, right? Like he is in a state of delirium at this point, sort of just like wandering around. He's haunted by the spirit of his dead daughter. I mean, I think they're still really leaving things open after the way that last season's penultimate episode ended with like him killing his daughter and then like trying to cut himself open to see whether or not he's a host.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly, he's still having those issues despite, being told ravenously that he is a human. But so, I mean, do we think that it's just like, guilt? Is it mental issues, or is he really a host? And this is like a Ford-like thing that's been haunting him.
I think
all of the above.
I think it's real William. I don't think he's a host, but I think he would rather be a host because then he could justify killing his daughter.
Right.
I mean, for him, I think that's where he'd get some kind of peace. I guess I don't know,
but I feel like he kind of resolved that issue by the end. It's like, it was my choice. I thought you were this thing. I chose based on that information, and you're
still
dead because
though.
of it.
I mean, you killed your daughter.
Again, yeah. But he's kind of come like, okay, I'm ready to like move on and be MIB, Man in Black, as he came out with his full black suit. But they ended up back in.
But then when Dolores said, "Are you done talking with your daughter?"
Yep.
And he's like,
"Yeah, right." So that's the thing is like, I mean, is it just something where like William has been like literally talking to himself, which would also be it's sort of like fun little season 1 callback, right? When the hosts were malfunctioning and talking to Arnold, like. Could that be a thing, or could it be him speaking to some sort of sense of programming that Dolores knows about?
Is there something they've implanted? Like you said, they implanted a track. Maybe when she hits him, it's implanting to keep him crazy. Is that it's something that maybe he's just like.
Or she implanted a little bit of Dolores in him, and that's why she's with him at the end of that episode when he's in the hospital.
Yeah, because that's the interesting part as well, right? Was like Dolores in her like season 1 getup,
right?
Yep.
Comes to visit him, which definitely feels like either a hallucination or like something, because that definitely feels manipulative. And speaking of callbacks, I mean, we just get so much of like the, I guess you've reached the center of your maze, the prison of your own sins. Welcome to the end of the game. And Ed Harris is so good in that last scene because like he's usually so steely and confident, but like his "Am I me?" was like you saw like how vulnerable he was in his eyes. That like
he was broken.
Yeah, he's like he's so confused and he has been abandoned. I mean, as Emily points out, like literally everyone you cared about is dead because of you, and like he truly has hit rock bottom, and now the very nature of his reality is being questioned. And I mean, I don't know. I guess the answer that Dolores provided, at least in my opinion, was very open-ended. That's, I guess, the last stage of the game that William has to get to. But man, a surprisingly low point for this character that like was pretty much untouchable in the first 2 seasons of the show.
And that's why I really liked it in terms of his character journey. It could be the end, but it probably won't be. This is like the low point, and then does he kind of dig himself out of this hole?
Well, the original William wasn't a very strong. He wasn't very strong. The young William.
Yeah, until he had something to fight for.
Right.
Yeah.
So he kind of reverted back to a weak William. I mean, I think this is his. Like I said, when you're going through that kind of stress, and who knows how long he'd been sitting in there drinking, shooting the gun, walking on glass like it's in bare feet, and all that other stuff that was going on. Again, he was completely broken, and there was a great line by Dolores which said, "Welcome to the end of the game." It was like smack.
But that's where I kind of like it. That's where I like it if it is like the end of that point or the conclusion of that journey that he started in season 1. But that does, I hope, allow him to then kind of go from there. And where does that go? I think I'd be curious. But I would
you want to see him back?
Well, because I mean, if you look at his trajectory, right? Season 1, he was trying to play a game that, as he was told many times, was not meant for him. It was for the hosts. Season 2, Ford said there is a game for you that he tried to play, and I guess he feels like he's still in that game. It does feel like mentally he's still in that game, in that he still is saying like, "You're Ford," or "Am I real?" or "Am I a host?" I guess it's been like 2 months since it's passed. Has he just been like just shooting up his place, like completely blitzed out of his mind that entire time?
That's how I took.
He's completely lost it. I mean.
So then the question is that post-credit scene in season 2 where he meets Emily in this like demolished version of the Forge, and it says like, you'd passed away a while ago, like this is your hell. does this all come before that moment? Was that part of this? Was that part of his delusions that he was visiting the Forge at some point in time?
Well, maybe that he hit the William that we know died, and now it's the William that's going to spend the rest of his life in this institution in hell. I mean, he's just. I mean, as Dolores comes in and all he wants to do is tell me, am I a host or not? And she goes, nope, you've reached the end of the game. And she disappears. I mean, to me, that is the ultimate torture. I mean, you're just stuck with your own thoughts.
Prison of your own sins.
Exactly. And he's just, like I said, he's killed everyone. I don't know what more we need from William. I think it was, if that's it, plus Ed Harris, I mean, he was just amazing last night. But I think if that's it, I'm satisfied with the way they wrapped up his character.
Again, I could see it as a wrap up. And again, he's not one character that's deserving of redemption.
No, he doesn't need redemption.
But I think, to Mike's point about the post-credits scene in season 2, leads me to believe there's more for this character to do, whatever that is. But I could also see, to your point, Jack, that was just one of the many delusions that he was probably that he was having, that he was just kind of running through.
Yeah,
and that was just that. But I just feel like the location where he was at was just too specific. Plus all the other things we saw in season 2, with Papa Delos and him trying to basically be brought back from the dead. That's, to me, what it seems like it would be for William, not by probably his own choice. But anyway, I think we're not done with William yet. But if it is the case, I could see it being. But it's just that's too neat a bow to wrap on that character, in my opinion.
Especially halfway through the season. I know that Westworld loves to break TV conventions. Hell, we just saw one in this episode. Yeah. But it would be a little weird to have one of your main characters have his storyline wrapped up in the middle of a season. Like if this was like a tried and true like Walking Dead mid-season finale where they took a break for 3 months, I could imagine that. But it's interesting in episode 4 to bid for Wilson's character, especially because we saw nothing of him the previous 3 episodes.
Yeah.
If he's such a big presence and then you like take one episode in season 3 to bring him back and then summarily be like, and then we're done with him. I don't know. I'm getting more and more around this idea that I think Dolores still has a use for him, and that at some point, like either she or maybe Maeve, maybe Serac takes advantage of William's prior relationship with Dolores and like breaks him out of the institution to try to use him against her in some way, or like have him seize control of Delos or something. I think he's still a piece on the board. He's no longer a king. He's been bumped down to a pawn at this point.
Yep. Or a bishop.
Yeah, maybe not a pawn. The pawn might be like the motorcycles and the automated cars.
But anyway, I think, I don't think he's done. But Jack, you think he's done? Mike doesn't think so. You think he's done?
I'm saying that if he is done, I think, like you said, they did wrap it up in a nice little bow.
Don't straddle the fence.
I could be. The only thing I'd worry about is, okay, to me, you ended his story great. I like the way it ended. What happens? You bring him back. It's going to have to be something. It can't be something cheesy. It can't be like, oh, I'm going to stop Dolores, but then I save Dolores because I get redemption. I don't want something cheesy. I want if you're going to bring him back, it has to be something almost like last night where we found Dolores. It has to be something like that. It can't be something because then it's going to ruin you had a good ending for him.
I think you answered your question, Jack. They did it well with the Dolores reveal. They've done it before, so I feel like we can trust them.
If they can do it, I have more power to it. But I'm just saying, sometimes
this isn't Heroes. This isn't Heroes. We can trust them.
Yeah, I think we have a lot of fear after like very specialized television after stuff like that. I'm intrigued. Maybe we'll find out. If there's another more to the game for William, like what a 2359 ritzy mental institution looks like, because it looked. I mean, I don't know. I've heard horror stories about some of the facilities nowadays, and I can imagine that. I guess William could afford maybe going to like the Betty Ford clinic version of a mental facility. But I mean, he has to wear like his little nice white onesie, which is a great nod to, as Jack said, like going full circle back to when he picked the white hat. But looks like a pretty, it looks like an okay place.
We know he's in an asylum, or is he put in somewhere where he could be at?
Well, she said she's putting him in a.
I think they have him somewhere where they have control of it.
Sure, I think that's what it is. To me, I was like, oh, that's it's a wealthy person's mental asylum.
Yeah, I mean, they don't use even William's money. They could have used some of Liam's money to like book him a spot, and hire a bunch of people to keep him subdued and make sure he's in there.
Yep, maybe.
That's the thing now, is that Dolores also now has the fiduciary advantage as well.
She's got the cash.
Yeah, she's got the cash and she's got the bodies now. So like, as much as we might have been like sort of scoffing at the idea of like, you can't take over the world, like you're one android, it seems like she's very quickly just gaining power through what is important to humans in the world.
Yeah. Very quickly.
Even I like the line where they walk in and she's walking with Caleb with the party, and she goes, "Your world's just like mine."
Yeah, and the party really was, though. I mean, with the masquerade, and specifically the people they were auctioning, which were just like people on display and very vulnerable wear and in very vulnerable positions. It's basically what we've seen with humans and hosts for the past 2 seasons, and it really hammers home that point that I think, Jay, you focused on really well in the premiere, which is like, same shit, different location of like even if you escape the park, somebody's going to be that host role. Somebody's going to be looking down on somebody else.
And, if you study human history, I'm a big history fan, like humans just do the same shit over and 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 over again. They're very predictable. And it's something that I do.
In Power Talks.
I find that this show explores a lot and explores it well.
But they were doing it for charity, so I wasn't so upset.
I noticed that apparently there were some parallels between, because Liam meets back up with his Mr. It's All a Simulation friend, and apparently the way that he was sort of talking about auctioning off the women was very similar to some lines from season 1 that Maeve had about this idea of like, you're paying for it no matter what. It just depends on, what the cost is. So I don't know. Maybe that's just a fun callback. Maybe that's hinting to the fact that maybe this guy's correct, that they are in a simulation the entire time and that everything's connected. But it's a nice little cementing that, you might think you're in a completely different location, but even the exact same dialogue is being said between characters.
What about
if you're noticing repeating narratives, you might be in the Matrix.
What about the Stubbs and Dolores fight? Now, do you think?
Oh, that was so much fun.
Do you think
that was
Bernard
awesome.
regrets not fixing his shoulder?
I think Stubbs is. We were worried that Stubbs might be a quick in and out kind of character. Do you think he's already done? I hope he's still around.
No, I think he's still around.
I think he's still alive.
Yeah. But that was a lot of fun, because I feel like we haven't really obviously seen a lot of like hand-to-hand fighting. And that was a big episode for this, right? Maeve got to finally use that Shogun World training with the sword, which was a lot of fun. And obviously with the appearance of Musashi as well. But like I really loved, especially when it was underscored by that the weekend with the Wicked Games string quartet playing underneath as well. Like it was a really fun fight, because it was something that we hadn't really seen before. And it's also like I'm getting a lot of comparisons between like Bernard and Caleb and Stubbs and Dolores in terms of like their partnership. But even sometimes Bernard is a Dolores, like he dragged Stubbs into it. Dolores dragged Caleb into it. So it's like, it's really fun to see the parallels between the relationships they play. And here we have the two best fighters squaring off against one another, and Dolores handily beats him and throws him off the balcony.
Well, to be fair, he had only one arm, bad shoulder. I had a bad shoulder one time, and you can't. So you got to give Stubbs some. I do like how they both said it's not personal.
Yeah. Well, again, like we talked about this, I think, a couple episodes ago, right? That like his path was to protect the park. I guess his path now is to protect Bernard, but
yep, exactly.
His path was not, to beat up Dolores. Maybe if he changes that path, he'll be able to like come back stronger than ever. Do you think there's going to be a rematch?
Yes. Yeah.
It
has to be.
What's the point? He can't beat her.
Maybe he does.
Maybe it's like Rocky 2.
It would be weird to be like Dolores' big, defeat comes at the hands of Stubbs.
Yeah, it's got to. If someone's going to stop her, it's got to be Babe.
Yeah, but with Dolores wanted Bernard to be like, I want you to stop me. I don't want you to hire someone else to stop me.
Listen, I'm all for it. If there is one person that could bring down Dolores, it's definitely Steve Hemsworth. He's got.
Oh yeah, old Stevie Hemsworth.
It's Lil Stevie Hemsworth. Mm-hmm. He's got it. He's definitely got it.
I love the little luxury apartment they've crashed in. Essentially, like a no bedroom, no bath, like just a slum in Los Angeles that I guess they were able to scrap together some funds to sublet for the time being.
That's not even L.A. That's Victorville. That's some Antelope Valley.
That's true. Yeah,
desert. My grandparents live out that way, and it's
hey, when you're going to Vegas,
it is
Victorville,
middle of nowhere. But
how do you think they got into the party? How did they get past the blood scan?
I don't know.
Didn't think about that.
You're right. It was a.
Well,
it couldn't have been at that point.
Maybe that's what he had to use the money for, and didn't have enough money left to. I don't know.
Because that seems like a thing you could buy.
We know that Bernard has the capability. He doesn't have like the Maven Dolores ability to like hack any technology, but maybe he could do something. I'm not. Maybe they posed as like workers. It was just so random. They were at the party that all of a sudden we just hear Bernard go like analysis mode and realize like, wait, they got into the party. Okay,
don't let anyone in the party.
Well, he was saying that's why they were staying in the crappy motel in Victorville to save funds to be able to go to that sweet posh party. That's why.
Stubbs needed his beer, so that cut into some of the funds.
Yeah.
Were you surprised that we got sort of a? Granted, again, this was not Bernard necessarily meeting Dolores, but I guess he was. He was meeting a form of Dolores. Are you surprised that it came this early in the season?
Well, kind of, but not really.
Not after the reveal.
I feel like there would be just kind of some connection points. Like it shouldn't be nothing until like the last episode. So I was kind of cool with it. And it was a nice, really, Bernard, again, you're going to be like, 2 steps back from what actually is going on. And that's where I think it'd be cool just in terms of Bernard's story if his kind of moment of finally being successful is not being 2 steps behind Dolores or the plan or whatever. Because poor Bernard is, since his inception, his at first programmed to be kind of 2 steps behind, but now maybe he still is programmed to be 2 steps behind because Dolores brought him back. But I don't know.
What if that was just always his program from 4? It was like, no matter what, you always have to be like a couple of jumps of logic behind Dolores.
Yes. And maybe, it's Jeffrey Wright's fault. Like, he's just, he gives really good, what? Face. Like, I didn't know that was going to happen.
But, I mean, it's also, much like it's a great halfway point for us to see what havoc Dolores can wreak. It's a good thing for him as well. Like, his mission is, I need to stop Dolores, and now he's finally realized what she is capable of, and he's like, all right, I guess I'm going to have to figure out, and whether that means him being able to find Maeve, maybe partnering up with Sirach, or him just continuing to go on his own with Stubbs sneaking into parties. We'll find out in about a month.
The thing is, like, Stubbs' name is going to be actually like it's not just like metaphorical. It's going to be literal because he's going to, I don't know, his shoulder rip off from that fall.
Yeah,
and just be.
Or they're going to have all the ticket stubs from all the the hoity-toity events they had to sneak into to get to these technocrats before Dolores does.
Oh my god. I think Dolores picked the perfect person just to keep her in check. Like, she doesn't want him to actually beat her. He just wants to be a nuisance, just to kind of put a little bit of a buffer,
get her heart rate going, like keep pace with her enough that she feels like if she slowed down a bit, then she'll get caught. But she's not outright sprinting.
Exactly. It's like any speed bump. It's not going to stop your car. It's just going to slow you down a little bit, and then you're going to keep going.
A little bit of damage.
Just slow down a little bit, and then keep going. Anyway, Bernard, we love you here on the show, but step it up, man. You got to step it up.
It's halftime now. Like let's second half better be better.
You need to be Patrick Mahomes, and not. Who was that coach that always blows a halftime lead? Anyway, I forgot his name. The guy from the 49ers. Jack. Sports guy. Pop-up sports. What do you got? What's his name's kid? Shanahan.
Shanahan, yeah. Kyle Shanahan.
Anyway, Kyle Shanahan. That reference
can't
got
clear to lose.
Anyways.
Bernard.
Gentlemen. Any other things we want to talk about this episode before we get to what our listeners thought about? Because we have some good
the only other thing was, so as we said, we saw, Liam's rich hoity-toity friends once more. So I guess the narrative from the premiere was that his girlfriend, his new arm candy, who we knew was Dolores, had died of a drug overdose.
Right. He even said, who dies of drug overdoses nowadays?
They saw her again.
Yes.
And I'm assuming that since she's back in his life, she's not going to hide out. I'm assuming that she'll probably be out and about. How are they going to react to that? I think I would say this episode was more so played for comedy of wow, this stuff must really be good if I'm seeing dead people. But you think she still has to she still is putting her face out there in the public, right? Which sort of confuses things when a couple people think she's dead.
I think there's a couple ways to play it. I think she even said it, or it's been shown that the extremely wealthy kind of live in a different reality than normal people. And there's probably a far greater suspension of disbelief where they're even in this episode, oh man, these drugs are really good. And then there's probably some other weird, you don't live in the real world way they could justify her being back, it was a bad breakup. I don't know, some crazy rich person thing.
Oh, dude, I can't believe you couched this bad breakup in a drug overdose. You don't have to lie to us to talk about your embarrassing splits.
Or you cloned her so you could have her back because you have that kind of money. And I mean, look at Barbra Streisand clones her dogs all the time when they die. So really, we're not that far off from rich people doing crazy stuff like this. So that's what I'm going to chalk it up to, personally. All right. Any final thoughts here, Jack? Final thoughts.
Great 4. Episode. Fantastic.
Yeah. These past 2 episodes have really the first 2 episodes were great setup, and I think these next 2 episodes have really just ramped it up given what they showed us in the first 2 episodes. Yeah. So I don't know how we're going to get to another gear moving forward from here, but I'm very excited for it.
What I thought they did, what we talked about a little bit in the beginning, is you start off with Ed Harris and talking to Emily, his daughter, he's losing it. But they did a great job of bringing all the main characters into the story.
Yeah, we thought last week it was going to be an entire William episode, just how last week was pretty much all Charlotte with some Dolores mixed in. But no, they really made it a three-hander.
And of course, then they combined them all, and it was wow. I mean, that's not always easy to do.
But I think it is a benefit of it just being 8 episodes, right? Because maybe if it was a 10-episode season, they would spin the whole episode with William, which is not necessarily a bad thing, and shows have done it 100 times in this golden era of TV. But the fact it's only 8 episodes, it was more like a movie pacing where you had, while it did bring William into the narrative, you still had everybody else's narratives going full speed, which is a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I think to Mike's point, if it was the midpoint, it's like that mid-season's finale. This had the pacing and feel of a finale, or the second or the penultimate episode where
I got a lot of penultimate episode vibes. Yeah.
Yes. So kudos for them doing this on episode 4. And to Mike's point, is there another gear? Or are they going to chill out for a minute and then get back into it? I'm just very curious.
I think they keep going.
Yeah, well, I think now that you can't put the lid back on, the jar now that we know how many Doloreses there are out there. They only have to keep going. I mean, I know that it ends, the episode ends with not with the Williams stuff, but with Maeve being quote unquote dead, we've seen this so many times that Sirach found her and brought her back to life. Yeah. So
they didn't double tap her, so.
But you can't.
I did really like the image though of her blood mixing with the white host goo.
Yeah,
that felt very like opening credits esque.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's its official term on Wikipedia. Host goo. White
Is
host
it?
Goo. Yeah, look it up. Is there a Westworld Wikipedia? Because I remember Lost had a Wikipedia, Lostpedia. Star Wars has Wikipedia.
I'm sure there's a lot. I'm sure.
Who has the Westworldopedia? I'm not going to do it. I don't have the time. But if anybody's out there, send us an email.
There's one, westworld.fandom.com. They have these fandom ones for basically every
That's true.
thing.
But once upon a time, there was a Lostpedia that was separate of like all these fandom things, and it was dope. It was really cool. Those people were awesome.
I mean, I'm still using it to this day. It's super, super comprehensive.
It is. And I'm not just like praising it because they interviewed Jack and I, and they're good friends. But anyway, all right. That's what we thought about this episode. Now it's time to get into what you all thought about this episode with listener feedback. But before we get into that feedback, we're going to take a quick commercial break. Don't go anywhere.
Listener feedback.
All right, it's listener feedback time. Got a lot of no phone calls, emails to get into today.
Yeah, but it feels very pertinent that we would not have any phone calls. It's only through digital-based text that we would read feedback for Westworld.
Now, I'm pretty sure, this is one that came in the day after our last episode. So this one is not...
should we start requiring people to put their finger on something so we actually know that if it says not Ethan, that we know it's not Ethan?
Well, I see the emails.
Prime. I mean, there should be some kind of verification.
And there are podcast, feedback contributors that use fake emails, but not Ethan is the same account and looks like a real person every single time. But I will not out who not Ethan is. It's Dolores.
Good guess.
But, anyway, dear Jack, not Jack and Mitch. Wow, a lot of sass from you last week, not Jack. And Rise of Skywalker was my favorite of the Disney era Star Wars films.
Ooh.
I'm sorry, not Ethan. You're wrong. You're so wrong.
Is this not Ethan?
This is not Ethan.
Oh, you didn't say who it was.
I thought. Oh, anyways, he didn't say who it was yet. This is not Ethan.
Okay.
If it's Dear Jack, not Jack and Mitch, it's not Ethan. Yeah. I thought it was beautiful and emotional and gave me so much of what I wanted, yet you casually discarded it like trash during an aside. All right, I just gotta say this real quick. Not Ethan. There's a lot of things I did enjoy about Rise of Skywalker, but they're just moments. They're clearly J.J. Abrams like, wouldn't it be cool if we had this? Wouldn't it be cool if we had this? But I really liked Last Jedi, and I feel like it tried to solve a trilogy in one movie, and it was really rushed. And it was the most disappointing Star Wars experience I've had, in retrospect.
I don't think I've ever met anybody who liked both. Like, I really feel like it's two sides of the coin. It's either you liked Last Jedi or you liked Rise of Skywalker.
I thought they were entertaining, but
I guess because aesthetically they're just so different, and it definitely feels like... I mean, I guess when one film is basically made with the direction of trying to, like, quote unquote, make up for the mistakes of the previous film, they can't really be lumped to the same category.
Yeah, the problem I've always had is you're not going to top 4, 5, 6. You just
and it doesn't have. But that's what I loved about Last Jedi is it said, let's just break the norms of. Why is it the Skywalker saga or whatever, and let it be its own thing, let you have your own story. Yeah. And that's what I really liked about Last Jedi. Like, it was just like, have your own thing. And I think it's something that Dave Filoni with Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels and now Mandalorian is doing really well. It's like, this is a really rich universe. You don't need to have another Skywalker screw everything up for it to be a compelling story. Like, there's just so much there. That you could take something like Clone Wars and have these characters that have never seen before, and it's a fantastic story. So,
There, I agree with you.
But anyway, I'm not sorry, not Ethan. I will respectfully disagree.
Well, then let's tie this back to Westworld for a second, because that's what this season's proving, right? Is that if you want to tell a good Westworld story, it doesn't even need to be in the park. You can still do some crazy stuff in a different location. Westworld is not just its namesake park. It's more of an idea.
I think it's benefited from not leaving.
Completely
leaving the
agree.
park, because they have a whole new story that they.
Yeah, I would argue the weakest episode of the season so far was the one that took place in the park.
Yes, because they kind of did everything you could do in Westworld in season 1.
Right.
And I think if there's anything, say for a few episodes, it kind of felt trapped in its own design, which maybe they're trying to have us feel in terms of them trying to escape and get out of Westworld, which cool. But I think it is something that's been really refreshing about the season is that it doesn't have the confines of Westworld, and that's what makes it so fun to watch.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, not Ethan. Our temporary alliance has ended. I am now officially back on the side of my forever friend Jack, and of course,
wow.
Mitch. It seems like you are done with talking about Lost while also are waiting out your audience. Well, I will faithfully continue to wait for a new episode. Season 2 is still on pause. As for Westworld, have any of you watched Star Trek Picard? I don't want to spoil the end of Picard Season 1, but let's just say it deals with an idea that's exactly the same thematic material as what Westworld is doing.
I will. I can speak to it as someone who has covered Star Trek Picard in both writing and podcast form. I mean, I will say the entire season is about androids. So there are so many parallels, including the final twist. And I would also say for these quarantine times, if you have a CBS All Access subscription, watch it. It is the best first season of Star Trek that I have ever seen. That's not saying a lot, considering that a lot of Star Trek series do not have very good first seasons, but I think it is very well made, and I think it does live up to the hype of bringing this character back.
I love TNG. Actually, I love season 1 of Voyager. I love Voyager. That was my jam.
Andrew, because the typical saying about these seasons that the first season is always when it's finding its sea legs, so they're always going to do really weird episodes and try to figure out who characters are. But I do feel like the first season of Picard, and maybe it's because they had the serialization in it, but they knew where they were going. They knew which characters they were, and so you do see growth from these characters over the course of the season, but there's not going to be your occasional WTF episode in there.
Fair enough. I do want to watch it. I will get to it. The thing is,
only 10 episodes.
And Mike, I applaud you. Well, I mean, I guess it's kind of your gig where you have to watch all these TV shows. But there's something where I envy those that don't have children during this quarantined world where I don't know. What do you guys get to do? You just to take naps whenever you want.
I mean, well, the thing is, I have a near 1-year-old, so
I know,
he's definitely still keeping us busy. But we're luckily, inside with a kid who does not. He demands our constant attention, but it's not in a way of keep me entertained at all times. It's more so just stay in my proximity and make sure I don't get into trouble. Instead of okay, we'll watch this and then we'll have to watch this and then we can go do this. So I'm lucky in that regard, and that the time's ticking down until there are certain things we can no longer watch in front of him.
Oh, I know.
Considering when he starts becoming receptive to things.
Paw Patrol!
Movies!
Paw Patrol! Actually, we're past the Paw Patrol. They're into Muppet Babies, which I actually really like the new Muppet Babies. But anyway, that's
well, I'm speaking less of that and more so I can't watch HBO shows in front of my child anymore.
Movies.
Yeah.
That's why the Paw Patrol got old, though.
I hate Paw Patrol, but I'm glad they're past the Paw Patrol. Anyway, moving on. What makes you human? Is it your brain, your soul? The pearl in Charlotte is the memories and the essence of someone put in her body, and yet her Charlotte's self is scratching out. How does it happen? If your memories live on after you die, is it still you? Deep stuff. Forever, your bestest friend, not Ethan. I think it's a compelling thing. That's why I love. I think it's the season 2 kind of line. You only live as long as the last person that remembers you.
Yeah, that's what Dolores says to Bernard when she rebuilds him. And it was actually we heard in the beginning of this episode too.
I love that line because there is this. it depends on your belief structure, and I don't want to. There's a lot of different beliefs of what happens after you die, but for those, I say it's a really like grounded in reality idea of what, I don't know, who you are and you know what happens after you die or whatever. But at the very least, like the memory of you is shared, and kind of that's how you live on among who knows what actually happens. But at least at that level, that makes sense.
Do you remember that guy? Can't remember his name, but
he was kind of a jerk. But
you know, he. I can't remember what he looks like.
Anyway, all right. This next email is from Maggie. Maggie the Magnificent. I forget her full title here. Hey, Jay, Jack, and Mike. I'm really enjoying Westworld this season and enjoy you all talking about it. My roommate mentioned, as we started episode 3, that the plan for season 3 was the reason the show was greenlit in the first place.
Ooh.
I'd forgotten that, and I can't wait to see why. A theory for who is Charlotte, so we'll see how good this was.
Oh, here we go. Let's see if Maggie got it.
It's from 5 days ago. I saw this somewhere. What if Dolores has Wyatt's brain ball, and Charlotte has Dolores's brain ball?
Damn, Maggie.
That would make sense.
All right, well, Jack, you have to amend your statement. It's not that nobody knew it. Maggie knew it, and everyone else just got it wrong, except for her.
What I was really saying was we didn't know that Dolores was all of them.
Yes, but still, I think it's if this was your theory, Jack, you would be like freaking.
I don't do that anymore. No, I don't do that anymore.
That was a genie quote. That would make sense after how Charlotte acted in episode 3. It's not my theory, but I found it interesting.
Oh, but you just said it's not her theory.
She said a theory of who Charlotte is. I saw this somewhere.
Yeah, she saw it online, so she.
Oh, she stole it.
She said,
I'll give her credit for being the vessel at least, because I mean, it literally is all Dolores, but I do think that maybe Dolores is showing more Wyatt tendencies, whereas the way that we saw Charlotte in episode 3 was a bit more like of the soft-hearted, more emotional Dolores.
Mm-hmm.
Let me correct I have seen people say they thought Charlotte could be Dolores, but I'm saying they didn't see Dolores.
Right. Yeah. That it was like, okay, maybe, one of them was Dolores, not 4 of them.
Right. That's what I was trying to say.
I understand. You're treading back your statement. All right, next up is an email.
I don't want to get criticized.
From good friend Jacob Parr, and for those who don't know, he's our resident artist that does all the artwork for all of the podcasts on the Jane.
Listen, and the artwork I think still works even when you're outside the park. I think the hats are still there.
It was in this episode. With
exactly.
The black suit and the white insane asylum suit. Hi, hey team. I have one theory and one theory only. I'm trying to pay attention to when Serac interacts with other characters. So far, we've only seen him interact with Maeve in person, and has otherwise been on those slick future Zoom chat shades. My theory is that Serac is not a person, but rather a manifestation of the AI created by Insight. He can be seen virtually only by people wearing glasses and hosts. I'm thinking back to the portal to the Valley Beyond in Season 2. Hosts were able to see this, but the humans were not. It would explain why Delos has no records of him, and how apparently he has an incredible amount of intel on Dolores and everything else going on. I was really hoping for tonight's episode would not foil this idea. At dinner with Maeve, the waiter does not acknowledge him. Is that just because of who he is, or can the waiter not see him? The brief flashback to the destruction of Paris. By the way, what the heck? May crush my theory, but who knows? Anyway, let me know if you guys can rip this up. I don't know how airtight it is, and I might have missed something along the way, but I do think that an all-knowing AI is kind of the villain that can totally stand toe-to-toe with the mini Doloreses. Doloresi?
Doloreses.
That's a good theory, because it's almost complete opposite of what we would think, because Serac so heavily was just like, we're against, I'm so human, I've got to save the human species, yada, 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 where it's almost like, all right, you're a little too much into this. No human cares that much about humankind.
Yeah, like he has so much knowledge and fascination with humanity that it's almost like, are you studying it because you're not a human?
Exactly.
I can't comment because it's part of my crackpot theory.
Okay, well, we'll put a pin in it then.
Put a little pin. But I do think he doth care about humans too much. That's my... I think you're onto something, Jacob. All right, and then our last email from the Ethan. All right, here we
Ethan
go.
Prime?
Ethan Fisher.
Ooh, maybe they're all Ethans.
Yeah, that could be it.
Every email tonight was from Ethan. That dastardly foe. What follows is a transcript from a secret phone call made by Lisa Joy to another HBO showrunner who will only be identified here as DL. Hey, DL, I want to ask you a question. Anything for a fellow showrunner, shoot. We're having a Pearl problem. What's a Pearl? You know, the brain ball thingies. Oh, yeah, they're all Dolores, right?
Oh, you're doing two different people. Got it now.
Sorry.
He's being William, just talking to himself.
You guys can't see it, but Jay was trying to be... Go ahead, sorry.
DJ, sorry, I forgot I said that. What's the issue? LJ, on second thought, we figured it out. Thanks, Damon, bye.
So what, is the theory that Damon Lindelof figured out the twist?
Maybe.
Or that Damon Lindelof gave them the plot for the twist.
No, if Damon Lindelof gave him the twist, it'd be like, okay, Dolores gives away the pearl to somebody and says, just in case I die, this has my spirit in it. So if you want to have it, go ahead and see what you can do with it.
Yep. Watchmen. Amazing.
Oh, so good. That's another one. And that's what, 8? That's only 8 episodes, I think, right? I think that was only 8.
Was it 8 or 9?
9. I think it's 9.
It was 9. It was 9.
Sub 10. It was sub 10.
Yeah, but I very much encourage that as well. It might be Damon Lindelof's, and I'd say this is a huge loss and Leftovers fan, but it might be his greatest work. It's just so visually, aesthetically, thematically, performatively out of the park. Just such an incredible, incredible experience.
Whereas Lost, and again, it's almost like, okay, I have to take that bias hat off for a second. But Lost is kind of like his prototype for what he was probably trying to accomplish. And then Leftovers was able to hone it a bit more. But I feel like Watchmen, he was able to perfect the story that Lindelof was trying to tell, and it was just perfect on so many levels.
I think it was easier though too with
Watchmen
because there's only one season.
Yeah, and that's the thing as well. He was able to take advantage of the way that content's put out right now to be like, okay, I'm only going to do this. He might even market it as a limited series. This was also out of a piece of pop culture that has been so seminal to his life, but he's also being able to disseminate it through the themes of today, which I feel like even the Leftovers did not necessarily do as wholeheartedly as Lindelof did. So it's so different from what Lindelof has done, yet it's so similar at the same time.
Exactly. Yep. All right. Well, that is all of the feedback.
That was all Ethan did his little radio play. That's the only thing he wrote in.
See, the problem is, I feel like Ethan's...
You should have done 2 different voices.
Ethan's contributions have gone downhill since he started doing Jack's show, and I'm just saying, Ethan, we're all quarantined right now. What do you got? What do we have better to do? Come on, step it up. All right. Thank you for your feedback. It is our favorite part of the show. So please continue to send emails to westworldjjm@gmail.com. And if anybody does want to give a phone call, 385-309-0311.
You can call anytime.
Jack, you hinted
at
what your crackpot theory would be after Jacob's email. So it seems like Jacob was to it before you were. But We'll let you.
Actually, I kind of said it last night, so I kind of.
Is this even exclusive? Come on.
No, I didn't give it all. I just
you know what?
I just kind of mentioned it.
Jack show last night was his loss, and we're his watchmen. You know,
he workshops the ideas.
We're the final product.
Yeah.
He tests it out to see if Eckhart and
I think that's perfect.
Eckhart and Ethan do they like poo poo on his ideas? And he's like, okay, scratch that one out. They like this. I gotta make sure I bring this up. Tomorrow.
You know what? They really didn't. I don't think they did like it. So they kind of blew me off.
Well, they hate everything, so it's not like
that's true.
I don't expect them.
I can take it.
Anyways, all right, Jack, take it away. What do you got for us?
Okay, I was thinking, the Sirach guy. Is he real? Is he AI? And I'm leaning towards either it's Bernard or Bernard is controlling him.
Interesting.
Because Bernard is all about saving
two steps behind Bernard? Really?
Bernard is about saving humanity, right?
Sure, yeah, I guess.
Bernard, who both have that little freeze pause clicker.
That's true. They both do have a very similar.
That's true. Yeah.
And what would be a bigger twist, because no one's talking about it, but this guy, that Bernard, because he to defeat Dolores, he needs something. He needs Maeve, but he's obviously going to need more than that. So I believe that Bernard is, like I said, either he's controlling Sirach, that Sirach is just an AI, or that Sirach is Bernard.
So, I mean, in that case, though, because, I mean, wasn't the thing that Sirach had been secretly, slowly funneling shares from Delos for a while now? Would that have been Bernard, or was it just that, like, sort of like with Charlotte and Dolores, Bernard killed Sirach at one point and took him over?
Can easily be explained that way. So I'm going with it. I'm calling my shot.
All right, that's your theory,
and I'm sticking to it.
All right, I
basically helped Jacob's theory a little more. I think
I like Jacob's theory better, but I do think it's a fun theory.
Yeah,
I think that,
especially after all the how much we laid into Bernard this episode for always being so behind Dolores. That would be the ultimate one upper, right?
Because, maybe Bernard. That's because sometimes when you're behind like that, you're behind for a reason. You're gathering information. It's a long con or the game. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon, right?
Well,
so you're trying to get your information. You're trying to get this, and now that he knows that Dolores is, everybody. So he'll have an upper hand, and obviously Maeve knows too. So they'll both have the upper hand. Maybe that's how they defeat Dolores.
It'd be fun too if it's because Charlotte is a Dolores proxy, and it'd be fun if Sirach is a Bernard proxy.
Yeah, if the world's just full of Bernards and Doloreses.
Because if Dolores can make copies of herself, I'm sure Bernard could.
We also don't know who the Delos mole is, right? Charlotte and William talked about it again. We still don't know who this person is who's been leaking information to Sirach.
Yeah. Maybe. It's Stubbs. It's Stubbs, guys. It's definitely Stubbs.
He's the real big bad behind all this.
Yeah. Old John Hemsworth. Johnny Hems. That's his nickname. All right. That will do it for this episode of Westworld with Jay, Jack, and Mike. Give us a call at 385-309-0311.
Calling time.
Also send an email to westworldjjm@gmail.com. Use our Amazon link, jayandjack.com/Amazon. It'll look like the normal Amazon that you know and love, but a small percentage of those sales will go back to the Jay and Jack production fold. Want to thank people that make this show possible, our patrons, especially Tack from Tokyo, Eckhart Richter, Maggie the Magnificent, Joanne with the Plan, Ed the Creepy Mailman, Drake the Destroyer, and Greg the Gray.
Got them all.
Nice job.
I want to thank all of our patrons. You can find a full list over at jayandjack.com. We're halfway there, gentlemen.
Wow. One more month.
One more month.
And I mean, who's to say what the world will look like both in Westworld and outside of Westworld at the beginning of May, but I can't believe we are now approaching the back half.
It's an over-under on which one's going to be worse. hopefully.
Yeah, I think certain people would rather trust, I think, things in the hands of the robots at this point, but we'll see where we are, in a few weeks from now.
It would be bad if it's like, I feel like I trust Bernard more in this situation.
Put Dolores in charge. Let's see how she handles things.
Maybe Stubbs.
Stubbs 2020. Old Frank Hemsworth 2020.
No, Stubbs would be a perfect vice president for Bernard running as president of you need someone marketable. You need a nice everyman. Give me a younger Hemsworth, Go with that Stubbs guy.
Get a Hemsworth, but not an unapproachable Hemsworth,
exactly.
A
real relatable Hemsworth.
Right, yeah.
One you could grab a beer with,
Well, will you share the beers? That's the only problem.
All right, well, that'll do it for this episode. We will be back next week for more Westworld. Until then, hasta luego and goodbye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.